this thing is where your strategy actually comes into the picture. Please note this down because it will help you a lot later. You see, you have to do these 6 tasks before you can say that a subject has been prepared well. What are the 6 tasks? Big picture formation, first reading, second reading, analyze previous year questions, revision and testing. Once all of these are done, then you can say, okay, history is done. So if you're telling me that I have done history, or sir, I'm going to do history, I don't believe you until you've done all of these. That is when you become really prepared for the examination. And you see, all of these things should be dated so that you can track your dates. The estimated date and the actual date, you should have some form of tracking. Now, you don't need to have this thing. You can do this on your own. This is just something which makes it a little easier. So, you saw that this is the entire thing, and this is another iteration of it in a darker background. Basically, if you are saying I have to do history, follow the green stuff. This is history, and this is the green stuff. This is history. So once all of these is done, history will be done. And so once all of these subjects, these are all subjects represented with gems. If you collect all of these, here you will achieve success, because you will have done all of this, and all of it will have been tracked, right? The dates and the tracking of it and the syllabus of it should be there in front of you. You can do this in any means possible, any way you can, but that is the essential idea. So what did I just tell you? I told you that to claim that anything has been done, you require 6 things. Please note down these 6 things. I call them the hexatask. Hexatask, H stands for tasks. One is big picture formation. Big picture formation. What is big picture formation? Big picture formation. Big picture formation is you taking an overall view of the subject, of figuring out what the subject is. Okay? I have an example here. This is a book. The book is a book. It's a very nice book by a biologist, a very prominent and well-known biologist. I believe he won the Nobel Prize, or maybe not. But anyway, this book is a very important book for the field of biology, and it changed a lot of things. It's a book called on human nature. Say I have to study this, and that this is one of the things I need to do to prepare for the UPSC exam. How would I do the big picture formation? What would I do in that big picture formation? Here is what I would do. I would take this book, I would look at the title, I would Google that title, on human nature. What is he saying? I would try to figure out what the entire thing is about. What is he talking about? I would look at the index. I look at the index and I see that he has broken the entire book down into certain sections. There is dilemma, hereditary, development and emergence and stuff like that. And you'll find the exact same thing in your UPSC exam, whether that history or geography. This is the stuff, that's how you do it. Begin Googling it. Begin getting a preliminary broad view of the entire thing. Look at images that it shows up. Look at the images which shows what human nature is, or what these sub things are. Form an image in your mind. Remember, in big picture formation, the image should be visual. Humans learn very well, beautifully well, when they learn with the help of images. So images have a very powerful effect on our mind. We are visual creatures. We are highly visual creatures, right? So therefore, your learning should be based on visuals, and that's why I use a lot of visuals in my content and in my book, and in fact whatever I do even while studying, I use a lot of visuals. The visuals form the basis of the entire thing. Say you are studying history, and in history you have to understand modern India. Modern India is your target. The chart says you have to do modern India is your target. How do you do big picture formation of it? You do big picture formation of it by looking at a documentary on modern India. A documentary will give you the visuals and the narrative. You see, there's a narrative and a story to every subject, to every discipline. It will give you a narrative. You hold that narrative. Then you go on to the textbook, right? That is big picture formation. It's you using Google, using YouTube, using images to figure out what the thing is about, just to form mental images of the subject that you need to do. Then comes first reading. First reading. What do you do in the first reading? How do you begin to consume? You have to consume this 300 or so pages of content, and you need to know it very, very well. How are you going to do it? Well, the way you do it is to go through all those 6 steps. You formed a big picture, then you went to the first reading. What did you do in the first reading? In the first reading, you only read the entire thing without stopping. You looked at the index. You saw, okay, there is a chapter on aggression, on human aggression. Alright? You read the chapter on aggression without stopping, without underlining, without highlighting. Okay? You just read it. If in the middle you find something interesting and you think that I should probably get back to it, then you put a small mark on the margins, like I have done here. See, this is me doing first reading here. I have written a very small note about something I found to be interesting and important. And I don't exactly remember when, because I did this a while ago, but that is first reading. And you know, the difference is that in first reading, you should not be worried about memory. If you ask me anything from this book, after first reading, I will not know much, honestly. I will only be able to give you a general conversation. I could have a general conversation about the concepts in the book. If you ask me multiple choice questions after first reading, I will not get the answers, probably not get the answers. That's first reading. I got the text and I went through it and I used that, and with my big picture formation, I now have a fairly good idea about what I'm dealing with. I then move on to second reading, right? Second reading is when I go into the details. Second reading is when I go slow and I want to take my time and I want to read things and get to know them in detail. This is where I might make notes. Notes. And people usually make this mistake. They like to make notes before they even have an idea of what they're doing. It's just the wrong way to learn. If you're going to learn something, and if that content is voluminous and if that content is heavy, like yours obviously is in the UPSC exam, then you require a procedure, a methodology to take your brain through all the different phases of it. Get the visuals inside it, then get the text inside it, then mold that text and pick out the details and then fill out all of it inside it, and then test yourself. And only then can you say that I know this book enough. You can test me in the UPSC and I will score well. In the second reading, I start to take detailed notes. This is an example. I have written something. It's not important to know what I have written, but just know that because I have written all of this stuff here, then I must have been thinking about it, right? So this I have shown you to demonstrate that this is second reading, right? This is second reading. What comes after that? It can come after or it can come before, but the third step is analyzing, the fourth step, analyzing previous year questions. I will come to that, Prachi. I will come to notes. We are getting there. Analyze previous year questions. When you analyze previous year questions, after you have done first reading and after you have a fairly good idea of the content, you look at the previous year questions and you don't worry about whether you get the right answer or the wrong answer. Don't worry about that. You worry about whether or not you know where the question came from. In your reading, did you come across it or not? It doesn't matter if you get the right answer. It doesn't matter if you get the wrong answer. You're only analyzing it. We are doing an audit. You're auditing your own self. You're auditing your own preparation so that you know where the problem lies, right? Don't worry about getting the right or the wrong answer. Figure out where the question came from and figure out how much you would need to know to get that question correct. What would you have to have read to say that the question, that you know the question and that you're able to solve that question? So that is second reading. That is analyzing previous year questions, right? Then comes revision. And this is where Prachi was just asking about note making. This is where note making really comes into the picture. You see, when you're doing the detailed reading of the text, notes should be made. Like I have made these notes here. Some of them are detailed, some of them are not so detailed, but I have made them and I have made sure to highlight the portions of the text which I know I will have to revisit. So this is, you see, some extensive notes have been made here. Extensive notes have been made and some highlighting has also been done. Why has it been done? So that at the time of revision, when I come back and when I do the revision, I know exactly what to look for. I know exactly what I have written, why I have written it, so that it should not take me longer. It should take me a shorter amount of time. I should be able to go through this book very quickly. I want to go through it like this. I want to look at this. Oh yes, I have a point here. I read that point. I think in my mind about what it is supposed to be. I get the idea. I move on, and I do this 2, 3, 4 times. I scan and I scan and I scan and I scan constantly because I have already put it through 2 or 3 iterations in my mind. That is good revision. Everything, beginning from the big picture, going to the first reading, to the second reading, to the previous year questions, and to the revision stage, including your notes, is a form of gradation, so that you have learned the same content in 4 different ways. And I promise you, the quality of your understanding, the quality of your knowledge will be so good after you follow this protocol that you will not get the question wrong. And it will make sure that not only do you get the factual stuff, that you know what happened when, but you also get the conceptual stuff very well. That you don't forget the conceptual stuff, that those things which you've been pondering about, because you gave yourself time to ponder. In the first reading, you had no stress on your mind about memorization. You gave yourself time and space to be interested. You took time to be interested in the topic. You thought about it genuinely. You became curious about it. And only then in the second reading did you get into the mold of actually memorizing everything and becoming prepared to be tested on it. You see, it's happening in a sequence. It's not happening in just one reading. And that's what many people and many of my students complain about. They don't know what to do because they haven't done the entire protocol. They haven't followed all the steps. Sometimes I find that people have done first reading of some subjects, but they never went on to the second reading of those subjects. They never went on to the revision of some subjects. What's recommended is that you go through all of these stages, all of these processes, and so that your preparation becomes comprehensive. Moving on to another question which you guys have been asking me. NCRTs. NCRTs, it's a perennial question. It's a very important question. I think that they are very important books, and they're important because, number one, they're official books. You see, they are official books from the government of India, sanctioned, and that is the curriculum which the youth of India is educated from. So they are absolutely inescapable. You need to go through the NCRTs very carefully, but you cannot depend on them. The NCRTs are not enough. I repeat, the NCRTs are not enough. The level of the examination is a lot higher than the amount of content in the NCRTs, but the NCRTs are absolutely essential, mandatory, I would say. You cannot avoid them. You have to do them. But that doesn't mean that it has to be boring. That doesn't mean that you have to read those books that you are so happy to escape from, which you were done with from school, and you don't ever want to look at them again, but then you have to do them all the entire thing again because you are now preparing for the UPSC examination. No, not like that. You see, the NCRT books are just manuals. They are manuals which contain the list of topics that you need to know about. If I pick out the NCRT of geography, and if I am looking at something, say I'm looking at westerlies, or I'm looking at the movement of monsoons, the NCERT does not tell me everything I need to know. It only tells me how the basic geographical phenomena works. It might tell me about El Nino. It might tell me, okay, the wind start to blow in the northwest direction from the Bay of Bengal, and then they take a sort of a turn because of the Coriolis force or whatever, and then they meet, and then we have rainfall in the upper parts, and that the rainfall is very important for some crops. Yes, that's not enough. That is essential. That is the bare minimum that you need to know about monsoons. You need to know a lot more about monsoons than just that. But the fact that it is mentioned so explicitly in the NCERT books means that it should become top priority in your list of topics to understand and know about. How do you understand and know about that? Quickly follow the 6 steps again. Quickly do that. Don't spend much time. Google monsoons. You'll get a Wikipedia page. Scan through it, look at images, look at YouTube videos, see what videos it throws up. Don't spend too much time. Watch 1 or 2. Maybe you will find a very good explanation videos. Like there are some really good explanatory videos on YouTube now, 5-minute explanations. Some of them are animated, some of them are very rich with content. Very, very good explanations are available. You looked at that and you got a very good idea of, okay, this is what I mean by monsoon. So the guy explains it to you. You go back to the NCERT and you read that entire thing then again, and you form a richer picture. When you go to the NCERT again, then you pay attention to the details and you try to memorize as much as you can, right? Those are the basic steps which you need to follow. And I have told you about the NCERTs. I have also explained how they should be read. They are bare minimum and essential resources for this examination, which nobody should skip, and which everyone must do, but they're definitely not enough. Definitely not enough. Another question which I have, which I would love to address. With about 9 months left, can we start preparation now? With about 9 months left, can we start preparation now? The answer is yes. But you need to figure out how much time you will be able to commit to the 9 months. 9 months doesn't mean you have the entire 9 months, right? If you're working, then you can take out a massive chunk of that 9 months. If you have other responsibilities, you need to rule this, factor it in. The second question to ask yourself is, how many attempts do you have? Even as an absolute beginner, you will not have all weaknesses. There will be some areas of strength. Maybe you're good with language, maybe you're good with polity, maybe you like reading the newspaper, so you know a lot of general studies. Maybe your optional subject is very strong because you spent a lot of time in your graduation studying and reading about it. But you need to know what those things are. Second, you need to then figure out what are the things you absolutely know nothing about. What are the things which you are not at all competitive in, right? That you know nothing about. And once you have this over the entire spectrum, and by the spectrum I mean there are about 17 in this chart here. There are 17 divisions approximately. So I read it out to you. There's English, there's math, there's history, polity, geography, economics, environment, science, tech, current affairs. There is ethics, integrity, aptitude. They're all three. I treat them separately because they require some special training. There is essay and answer writing, deconstruction. Then there is the optional subject. So this is a lot of work. But you can take this. In fact, let me show it to you. You can take this stuff. These are the main divisions that you need to cover. All of these are subjects, right? You need to cover all of this stuff. And you need to do the 6 steps of all of these. So if you've done the 6 steps for math, you get this, you get the pink gem. English, you get this one. For history, you get this, and so on. All of these have to be done. Now the reason that they have been divided into these, these blocks is because all of these sections will take approximately the same amount of time. You notice here that ethics I have mentioned here. Ethics includes ethics, integrity, aptitude. And essay writing is not one thing. Essay writing is deconstruction, structured brainstorming, SLGO, whatever that means, I will get into in another date. But essay writing, you will notice, is this big of a section is essay writing, this big of a section is ethics, and this entire thing, this entire section, which my hand is panning, is GS. This is CSAT. This is CSAT, GS, ethics, essay, optional. Why this division? Because that is the exact weightage of these things. The entire thing, 60% of the whole thing is GS, so this is GS, and you need to divide this GS equally, your time equally among these different parts. Why ethics and why 3 divisions? Well, because it consists of 250 or so marks, and it's a very important paper, so we divide it into 3 parts. And why essay? Same with ethics, 3 parts, it deserves 3 parts. Optional, this may get a little bit more extensive, but for the sake of convenience, I've kept it at 2 parts, and it forms basically a proportionate kind of a system, and you plan your entire strategy according to this division, if you want. Of course, you can choose to do it. Of course, you can choose to do it in another way, but that would be a very effective way to do it. I had to talk to a lot of toppers and a lot of people to arrive at this design, at this structure. It took me more than 6 months to design this into a perfect structure so that everything is covered. You see, an additional problem with the UPSC exam is that there are 3 stages and 6 subjects in GS, which are distributed across the stages. So you will get the 6 subjects in GS: history, economics, geography, polity, science tech, and environment, whatever. And you will get the same exact 6 subjects in mains, distributed over 3 papers: GS paper 1, GS paper 2, GS paper 3, right? And in addition to that, you will get essay and you will get ethics and well, a bunch of other stuff. How should an aspirant prepare themselves so that if they do history, if they are spending time in history, then they spend only the amount of time that is required. They spend only the amount of time that is required so that their effort is maximally optimized. They can do prelims and mains together. They know exactly what they're doing, so they don't have to do it again and again. What should be the entire distribution of the syllabus in equal proportionate parts so that the entire game can be covered in the least amount of time? That was the challenge, and it was not an easy challenge. It took me a long time to figure it out. Before I arrived at this hexagonal structure, I had to, it was only a sequence, a linear sequence and a list, basically a list. Now, what's the problem with lists? You see, the problem with lists is that lists tell us that I should do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Sequence. There is no sequence in the UPSC examination for the subjects. Maybe you do prelims first, maybe you do mains first, maybe you do essay writing first, maybe you start with polity. It is a different strategy for everyone. How should the syllabus be structured so that anybody can their own strategy, at their own pace, at their own convenience, according to their own strengths? That was the goal. And the reason that I'm telling you all of this is because you can take all of this stuff and use it in your strategy. The name of this poster is the UPSC Navigator, the ultimate UPSC. You cannot get it because it has not been released, because only 2 exist in the world and one of them is hanging here. And in time it will be released and then you can have it, but so far nobody else has it because I have not released it. I will release it soon. Coming to the next question, how should the strategy be to select optional subject? I believe somebody